What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the OBR Prospect Spotlight here on the OBR Streaming Network. If I'm your host, Jacob, you can find me on X at Roachism13, or you can go over to the OBR.com. You can hit me up over there on that website, and I'm always happy to talk Browns, happy to talk draft. If you're checking us out on YouTube, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, that thumbs up. We appreciate you very, very much. The Prospect Spotlight has been getting some decent enough views, had some big moments, so that's really cool. And I know that people are starting to kind of transition to the draft a little bit more because of the season. So I appreciate you guys very, very much. All right, we are going to talk interior offensive line prospects this week, and I wanted to bring someone else in, so it wasn't just me yelling at you guys for 20 minutes or whatever every week. So I had some really great conversations. If you're on the OBR.com, you've probably had a conversation with him there on the forums, which is really where I got talking to him, and I'm really excited. So I'm going to bring on Dan Sykes here to talk interior and defense offensive line. What's going on, man?
Hello, sir. How you doing today? It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm doing great. It's fall. It feels like fall. Finally, I'm not sweating every 5 seconds that I go outside. So
yeah, absolutely.
That kind of thing. So we're going to talk about some interior offensive line. We're going to bounce back and forth for this episode. So we talked about it. Dan, I'll let you go first, man. So hit me with your first prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was really tempted to go with some obvious linemen here, but I actually, anybody can find, the obvious guys like Tate Ratledge. He's a guy that I really like out of Georgia, big, powerful guy. He's might be falling down boards a little bit because he just had a surgery, had a tightrope repair of a high ankle sprain, but he's supposed to start again tomorrow. So it'll be good to see him get back out there. But I wanted to dig into some guys that were maybe just a little bit less known. And so the first guy that I really wanted to talk about more extensively is Luke Kandra at Cincinnati. And this guy, he's kind of like a professor on the field, 6'4", 323. He played, this is his first year at Cincinnati. He was a transfer from Louisville. And I think that he might have come out last year, but he was just a little bit undersized. I think he was playing in the 290s. And I don't think that his draft prospects were quite as strong because people just didn't really necessarily take him as seriously as that size. He has added about 25 pounds of bad intentions in the last year. And this guy is just a joy to watch. He has most of the tools that you want to see in an interior lineman. Even at his size, he still runs a 4.9 40. He is very experienced, ready. He does a lot of the little things well. And he's also grading at a high level as well. So he's currently grading, I believe, in the 70s and close to 80 at PFF right now.
77 right now.
77. Oh, you've already got my notes for me. I appreciate it.
I already got it up here. 77 and 81 pass blocking grade and a 75.4 run block.
Yeah, so he's grading well, and I don't always put all the faith in those grades at PFF, but his tape absolutely lines up with it. So he's one of those rare guys who plays with a great deal of smoothness and calm, but he can also bring a lot of bad intentions, and he run blocks like he wants to hurt you. He pass blocks. He has an excellent anchor. He's just an all around excellent guard. And I think that he would be a great prospect, and he's not going to take, a second round pick. He's probably going to be a third or fourth round guy.
Yeah, it's like he plays on the right side, and if you're looking for a Wyatt Teller replacement either next year or into the future, how about another guy that likes to play like Wyatt Teller? Because he will maul you if he can get if he gets himself, and I think he moves really well. You talked about him adding that size. He added that size, and he can still move. Like, it's not like
absolutely.
If I added 30 pounds, we would have a totally different conversation. I would not be moving, but I'm really glad I don't have him on this list but he's one of those, like, you know how you have your guys that are kind of out there. He's like on borderline on my list of my guys, because I think that he's one of those guys that transferred, that didn't transfer to a big powerhouse, but the transfer really worked out for him. And
Well,
sometimes
Cincinnati's his hometown. He is an Ohio guy.
oh
So
shit, I missed that.
yeah. Yeah. So he came home to play. And yeah, so that's, which is a little bit of a bonus. I mean, he didn't transfer for for a payday. He didn't transfer for glory. He's like, yeah, I want to go home and play. Which is that's one of those character things that I think speaks well for some of these guys that are not always household names. Also, one thing that I'd mentioned, you mentioned him as a right guard, and that is where he is taken many of his snaps. But I have seen multiple sources referring to him as a 3-position interior lineman, that he has played at left guard and is center capable, which is a bonus. I know for me, some people feel that there's a big difference between left and right. For me, I don't necessarily think it's a huge difference, because it's just kind of a mirror thing. I can eat a cheeseburger with my left or my right hand. So, I think that a lot of these guys can be position flexible there. And I think that he's a guy who is skilled enough and smooth enough, and he's just a very high football IQ guy, and I think that he can probably make that transition.
He's played a lot of football. Like that's a big thing to do. It's like, and we'll get into this. I'm working by the time this drops, it probably won't be out, but working on a really in-depth quarterback piece with Sam Penix over at the OBR right now. We're cutting up some film and just kind of collabing on this thing. And don't sleep on people that have played a lot of football, as NFL scouts are putting stock in people that have played a lot of football. Like you cannot substitute experience, and he's one of those guys. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so I'm going to stick with guard. Since you went guard, I'm going to go with my top guard, and I'm going to go with a big mauling a guard in Tyler Booker from Alabama, who did play some right guard back in 2022. So he's had some of that flexibility.
Yeah.
Also played, I think, week 3 this year. He started at left tackle for Alabama. It was week 2 or 3. I don't remember specifically, but so he's played some tackle, and I don't know necessarily that you want him to play a ton of tackle, but if you're in a situation like where the Browns have done this before, even this year, they busted Joel Bitonio out there. I think Tyler Booker can do that if you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Which just seems to be what the Browns have to do on the offensive line. So it is what it is. But Tyler Booker, 6'5", 352 pounds. He is a massive, dense player. Like that, like my first bullet point on him is massive, dense build with good arm length and very good play strength. Like that.
Yeah, he was created in a lab to be an interior offensive lineman, no question.
Absolutely. You talked about punishing and looking to deal damage to defend. That's what Tyler Booker's MO is. He is going to look to punish you. He's really heavy-handed. He's looking to deliver body blows. I think that the pin pull is where you expect pin pull style runs is where I think he excels the most as a run blocker, which was a staple of Kevin Stefanski at the beginning of his career here in Cleveland. They do they do all that zone, the inside and outside and stuff, but that pin pull has really, especially with Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio, that's why they invested in those 2 guards, was because those guards are so good at that pin pull. And this is what you're getting from him. He's got the power and core strength to displace defenders on the second level. I think his foot speed and lateral agility is just okay. So if you're wanting to get really wide, sometimes he doesn't get to the spot on time. Sometimes him being out there as big and powerful and daunting as it is may be enough, because defensive backs are like, oh, I don't know where's he going to go. But he's got to work on some of that stuff too. I think he's kind of an average athlete in space. Off the line of scrimmage, I think in the short area quickness and burst to get in right in the face of a defender in the run game is more than enough. he can lose against athletic speed rushers, especially if they're gap shooters and they just get inside on him too quickly. But one thing about him that reminds me of DeJuan Jones is some of these speed rushers just can't get around DeJuan quick enough.
Yeah.
And he's got long arms, dense size. He's just a big dude that even these speed rushers that are really good athletes, that are better athletes than him, they just can't get around him fast enough.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned DeJuan because they actually have a couple of technical issues that are kind of similar. And you mentioned how he gets out into space, and DeJuan is just not necessarily great in space. He's a guy who plays really upright, and so he moves sideways, he moves backwards really well. But going forward, when you ask him to get that pad level down and you ask him to sink his hips, he can get off balance pretty easily. Now, Booker is better at that than DeJuan by a wide margin, but it can manifest in some of the same way in that he can be so aggressive that he can kind of get out over his skis, and he gets a little bit. He can just get aggressive and he can miss. Which, hey, if you want somebody knocked out the club, Booker can knock somebody right out the club. He's got all of that power, all of that strength. He can anchor against big interior defensive linemen. That's nice. Yeah, and plus he does combo blocks well. He gets to the second level well. He's got a good foundation. He's a very solid interior line prospect.
What did I not do? 8 quarterback pressures, no sacks. That's what I meant to say. I didn't say that.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I hate to go back, but we were talking about like interesting statistics on Luke Kandra. I don't think that he had a single flag in 2023.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Sorry. Because you mentioned that and it just reminded me. But
I try to bring up some of those. Sometimes I just get so worked up in the bullet points, I forget to add the data.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's exciting to talk to somebody about this stuff. I mean, so we sit here and we nerd out and we research this stuff and we watch tape incessantly. You get to talk to somebody about these issues and we get a little excited. So no, absolutely. I totally understand.
All right, man, I'll kick it back to you. Give me another one.
Oh my gosh. I love to stay obscure, and I'm going to give you one. I don't, I'm sure it sounds like you're looking this stuff up on the fly. But I'm going to give you one that you might be scratching your head a little bit. And that's Armaj Adams Reed out of Texas A&M. This is a guy who was not highly touted coming into this year. He was, a lot of the read on him was that he was a really talented guy, lots of physical tools, needs a lot of things that he's got to work on. He's got to work on his pad level. He's got to work on his handwork. He just needs to get better everywhere. Well, dude, the light came on for this cat. And he might be one of the most violent interior linemen that I have seen all year. I would encourage you to go and find some tape on this guy and look at him, because if you need somebody, bounced out of the club, this is the guy to do it. If you need an get into a brawl in the tunnel off the side of the field team, this is a guy you want with you, because this guy is 6'5", 330. He is fast. He is immediate. He is explosive. He drops into pass protection. He's looking for somebody to help. You see his head swiveling. You see the awareness. When he's working in space, you see him identify his target, zero in on them. And when he makes contact, it's ugly. I mean, some of the blocks that I saw this guy throw in some of the tape, just a brutal player. And nobody's talking about this guy. He's got like an 81 grade right now, and for run grade, and he's like a 78.4 in passing. Which again, I hate to lean too much on these numbers, but he is just a brutal guy that has kind of come out of nowhere, and he is playing his way into a very draftable position at this point.
He kind of did a little bit of bouncing around at the first couple of years. He plays a very small amount in 22 at right guard. And then last year he played right tackle and left guard. and
Yeah.
then they put him back at right guard this year. And boy, are you right? That light just came on.
Yeah.
He doesn't look anywhere near the same player. Like he is
Yeah.
just.
And you get that with some guys. You know, they get a year older, you know, they stop being boys, they start being men. You know, their life gets stable, whatever. But sometimes that light comes on and they're like, my job is to go out there and hurt people. And that's what this guy's tape looks like. He is just a vicious, nasty interior lineman. And I love the guy's film.
And he's very versatile. Like when you do look at some of the scheme grades, he's got a nearly identical zone and gap grade. Like it's not
Yeah.
like he can only do zone concepts or can only do gap concepts. They're pretty identical when you look at the data. And again, like you've said, data's
Yeah.
not everything, but the data shows
Yeah.
you like he's a pretty balanced player.
His tape backs up to his data. And you know, he blocks down on people like a truck, you know. He's I did not find any holes in his tape. You know, from working combo blocks to his anchor, to his ability to slide into space, his ability to go out and track targets on the second level. I didn't see anything where A&M was pulling him and getting him out to lead somebody. But the way that he plays in space, I have no doubt that this guy can go out. He's like a heat seeking missile. And for a guy of his size and his frame, he has impressive agility.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that I haven't done enough work on, but he's definitely one of those guys that's like, you guys should be talking about. More people should be talking about him. And I get it. You'll look at the other 2 years and say they're not as good as this year. That's true, but that's how
Yeah.
progression works. Like
Yeah.
that's the type of progression I want to see.
Yeah.
So I'll go to my top center prospect. It's Jonah Monheim from USC.
Yeah.
I love this guy as a football player.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. In college for USC, he has played every position except for left guard. I have heard he has played left guard in his life. Maybe it's practice, high school, whatever it was. So we know that he's done it. And he's done all of this at a high level. You talked about it pre-show. He was their left tackle last year. He was their starting left tackle last year. And you're talking about a guy, 6'5", 310 pounds, redshirt senior, played a lot of football. He's their left tackle last year. He had 15 pressures and 2 sacks as a left tackle last year. He's got shorter arms, and I think that's kind of why he kind of projects more on the inside than he does at tackle. But in 2022, he started most of the year as their right tackle, then played almost 300 snaps as their right guard. He played 50 right guard snaps last year, and now he's played 600 center snaps this year. He's played a lot of football at a lot of positions. And I think he's the best as a center. I think that's where he belongs. And the thing that really, really jumps out to me about we talk about football IQ and we talk about just good minds and good understanding of what they're supposed to. From game 1 this year with a new quarterback, Miller Moss, it's a new quarterback. You had Caleb Williams, different kind of quarterback, first year starter, all those things. He has taken control of the protection schemes and sliding, making the adjustments at the line of scrimmage as though he had played center before. He hadn't done it in college. It's been a long time, but you could see the leadership and the football IQ because he's getting up there and he's like, oh, there's your Mike backer. The pressure's coming this way. You can see him on the all 22 pointing things out from the go. Yeah. And that's not something he did before, but that's something he's a great athlete. I think he moves really well in space. He's got really quick, his footwork's quick. I think he can be moved around. I think his hand usage is really good. I think he needs to work on his leverage a little bit more as a run blocker because I don't think he generates enough power at times when he's trying to move people. Give him a year or two in an NFL strength and conditioning program. I think he'll be just fine about that. He's 6'5", so I think sometimes the pad level has a lot to do with that leverage at times. But I think he's a really physical player. Like for a guy that isn't mauling people in the run game, I still think he's physical and has no problem playing physical football. Yeah. But I think his hands as a pass protector are just phenomenal. like just what he does to counter defenders, what they're trying to do. Does just a great job keeping their hands off of his chest. Because as a guy that at times can struggle with bull rushing and some of those power situations, he makes sure that defenders can't consistently use that power against him. And I just think he's just such a smart football player. And it's just, that's the kind of guy I want on my team.
And I think one of the things that you mentioned there about being a smart football player, I think that is pretty much the core of his game. He plays a very cerebral brand of offensive line, which is something that you like to see in a lot of offensive linemen. It's more chess than checkers a lot of the time. So he's played some really high level teams so far. I know that talking to Brett Sobolewski about him after the Michigan game, I told Brett, I was like, hey, this guy's right now, he's my OC1. Brett's like, oh, he just got smoked versus Michigan. And I'm like, well, yeah, he didn't have a perfect day, but he's playing against probably the two best defensive tackles in football. And it's like, what, his third game as an offensive center. And if you look at his grading, you'll notice that there's that ever-present trend that he's grading better. And I think that, I don't think that's a fluke. I think that's real. And even when he was playing in that Michigan game, he was getting beat, but it's kind of like DeWand right now. He's getting beat, but he's getting beat slow. For the most part, Jonah was getting beat slow by those guys. He was locking in. He was getting good anchor. He would lock into him. He'd get good hand placement. He'd sink his hips. And then they would just kind of maul him out of the way. But he gave his quarterback a chance to make the play. And for a guy who's still learning the position, that's a great thing. That really is. So yeah, he's a player that I love a lot, and I like him a great deal.
If you look at PFF right now in terms of their top 10 draft prospects, and I love what Trevor Sikkema does, especially with the NFL Stock Exchange with him and Connor Rogers is my favorite draft podcast. But Mason Graham is the third overall prospect on his board, the defensive tackle for Michigan. And then Kenneth Grant, the other defensive tackle, is their seventh overall prospect.
Yeah.
And like you said, that was his third game as a center. And it's still, he has 0 sacks on the year. Let's just keep that. Let's throw that out there. Now his run blocking in that game was really the issue.
He gave up a few pretty big hits. He got smoked on a couple of plays. And I'm just like, hey, but you're going to get that. It's like if you're playing left tackle against Myles Garrett, Myles going to win. Every now, I don't care how good you are. Every now and then, Myles going to win, and that's so. It's not fair to ask, anybody to stand up against those two guys all day long. So yeah, excellent player. I like him a lot.
It's a good luck.
Yeah. Like, I did what I could. You're on your own now, player.
All right, man. I'll let you take us out here. We've got just a little bit of time left, so give me one more.
I've been unconventional, and I've been a little goofy with a lot of this. Now, there are a couple of other centers that I do really like. One's Jake Slaughter from Florida. Okay. I like him a lot. I also like Bryce Foster from Kansas. Those are two guys that I like a lot. But, as we were saying before we got this started, a lot of what I'm thinking about is what is specific to the Browns and what do the Browns need and what do we need out of an interior lineman right now. And right now, we're at a place where we need help right now because we're going to be having it's a relatively low chance that we're going to have Joel with us next year. We might be losing other people as well. So we've got to shore up that interior line, even if DeWand plays. So I'm going to go totally weird here. I'm going to say Wyatt M. And so Wyatt is a 6'6", 317-pound, currently offensive left tackle at WVU. This is a guy, once again, when I was talking to Brett Sobolewski about it, Brett's like, oh, he's going to be a guard. I'm like, dude, you're out of your head. I said, this guy just beat Abdul Carter like he owed him money at Penn State. Look at this guy's grades. Look at his tape. I mean, he's like the old man in the sea out there, just like, I just beat up Abdul Carter. It ain't much, but it's honest work. And, this guy and people are saying maybe he should be an offensive guard. we could draft this guy right now. We can plug him in at guard day one. There is no question that this guy can succeed at day one and do all the things you want to do. He's good in space. He pass blocks well. He run blocks well. He's like 90 something right now in PFF. He's going to be a higher draft pick, but this is a guy that you can plug in right next to DeWand and not have a worry in the world. And if something happens that DeWand can't go, or something happens with DeWand and he doesn't continue to develop, guess what? You've got a young offensive left tackle prospect. If Jack Conklin, something happens to him, he is not the healthiest guy ever. You can plug him in at right tackle. So he is a draft pick that would give you an incredible amount of versatility and that elite level of capability that is just really hard to replace. So I think that that's something that we should consider. We should consider using one of those high draft picks to make sure that our offensive line is going to have long-term stability. And there is nothing safer right now in this draft class than, Mr. Banks out of Texas and Mr. Milam out of WVU. I think they're probably two of the safest picks available in this draft. And when you have a guy like Wyatt who can step inside and play at guard day one, let's do it.
You wanna hear my favorite stat about Wyatt Milam?
They're all good, but tell me, what's your favorite?
They are all good, though.
They're all good. They're all good.
Like, oh my God, he really has come out of nowhere for me. Because going into the year, I had no idea who he was, to be completely honest with you. It was
congratulations, because it's all good, man. It's like, I'm sure you're having fun watching this.
He and I have the same amount of quarterback pressure as we've let up.
Yeah. Yeah. This guy, he's not human. Now I will tell you, if you watch it, and boy, I know some people would get after me with this. He is not Joe Thomas. He is not. He's not as skilled as Joe Thomas. He's not as fluid as Joe Thomas. But he has some Joe Thomas-like qualities. And that is, he's a big country boy. So, down there on the river from West Virginia, and he's just real happy to go out and pack a lunch and go out and do work. And then, he's just a really nice guy until he doesn't want to be nice to you. And you can watch that tape and he just throttles some people. And so if anybody wants to see some Wyatt Milam tape, pull up that Penn State game, because there's a reason why everybody was talking about, we expected this guy to be the best defensive end in the draft. And boy, he just had a terrible start to West Virginia. Nobody talked about the guy who shut him down. And that's not a fluke. It's not a fluke. So, and now everybody's talking about Carter like he's sliced white bread. So yeah, Wyatt Milam is a guy that I would target. And I also, because this is a Brown-centered board and a Brown-centered discussion, you were talking about guys that, wow, I'm surprised people aren't talking more about this guy. I don't want anybody else talking about these guys.
Yeah, let him fall down.
Yeah. Oh, these guys are terrible. So when you talk to your friends, just tell them, that Wyatt Milam, I heard he's, I heard he's not that nice of a guy. He's not a good player. It's all fake.
He's got 2,000 career snaps at left tackle, 600 at right tackle. And in those games, 39 pressures and 3 sacks. He has not allowed a sack since 2021, and he's a 4-year starter. Yeah, I can find a place for him to play.
Yeah.
I don't care if if he's my tackle or my guard. I'll find it. I'll find a way to get him on the field.
He's an amazingly safe pick. I mean, the Browns could trade down into the teens, even the early 20s, try to amass extra picks in the first 100. And if that guy is your first pick, people are going to be like, who's this guy? Who's going to get the... You're going to look smart in 10 years. You're going to look smart because this guy's just going to go out and he's going to do work. Incredibly safe player, incredibly versatile. He's my offensive line man crush right now.
I understand it. Guys, thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate all your insight and information. We'll get you back on here before too long because I think we did really good. I think there's some nice chemistry here. I think we bounced back and forth pretty well. So I really like it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in again. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button, get that thumbs up, check out the OBR.com. But we'll see you guys again next time. As always, go Browns.